Hello everybody, this is Havoc. Welcome to another Total War Warhammer video. This time we are focusing on the Vampire Counts gameplay walkthrough. Been looking forward to this one for a while, so we're just going to walk right through it and talk right through it, I suppose. First off, I want to notice how the cities look. The cities, I think, look absolutely really cool. And when they get built up, they're just that very Eastern European look going on. You're 112 turns into the campaign, and oddly enough, he's got an alliance, a defensive alliance with the dwarves. They kind of joined forces to push back the greenskins to the south, and it's interesting that not everyone hates the Vampire Counts, and you could still be able to play, because that's one thing I was concerned with. It's like no one's going to want to be allied with the Vampire Counts because they're vampires and they're not going to want that. But clearly you can at least get a defensive alliance with the dwarves, and yeah, they're actually working out pretty well together, and that creates a solid southern border in which he doesn't have to worry about the greenskins really anymore, because as you can see, his allies have pretty much secured the entire southern border. So they have actually moved up into the north to Beckhaven. I'm losing my train of thought here. He really wants to take Beckhaven because, as you can see, Chaos has pretty much wrecked all sorts of cities. Now, I don't know if that's what a raised city looks like, as you're looking at there, or if the Chaos Waste, even though they're a horde, if they somehow can take over. But they're also preparing for battle against the Archaon, the Ever-Chosen, and Sartorial, the Ever-Watcher. These are two Chaos hordes that are both encamped, and you notice there's some purple little tentacle things, which clearly denotes something very interesting maybe going on within that army. And so, if he's going to bring up the mission objectives, and this is really cool. This gives us an interesting perspective on campaign victories for just factions in general. So you need to defeat the following factions. You need to defeat the Empire. An interesting thing is you have to ensure that any military presence from the Chaos faction is limited to only the Chaos Waste. So you don't necessarily need to destroy the Chaos factions, if you even can, but you have to be able to push them back to a certain settlement. That's a victory condition, and so I think that's really cool. He's going into his armies and the lack thereof, but first we're going to go into the building browser, and where he shows that this settlement, Eastern Sylvania, has been upgraded pretty much to the fullest, showing off the very high tier units that he can now have access to. And so he's transferring his armies to, instead of just being a whole bunch of zombies and skeletons, to the more higher tier, and as a result, his army upkeep has increased greatly. One thing to notice is that he's about to show these guys can, of course, recruit any units if they're within their own territory, but an interesting thing to note is they can also raise the dead, which is something that we've seen before. I think we've even seen it between one of the larger Total War channels when they got to play on the campaign map. So you have your low tier zombies and you have your low tier skeletons, but what's interesting is that he's going to show off these mounds that have these little hands above them. Whenever there's a large battle where a lot of people die, or maybe a lot of high tier people die, these mounds will show up, and it's essentially a draw point that higher level vampire lords can and will, as you see here, can recruit higher tier units beyond just the dwarves and the skeletons. So you can see he has fellbats, he can recruit dire wolves, he can recruit crypt ghouls, he can do black knight cav. You have to have the ability unlocked to recruit those units in order to draw from those. But it's interesting because, as he says, you can use some Machiavellian political maneuvering, and you can draw two factions with high tier units into battle together, and then basically have access points throughout the entire map where you can recruit high tiered units. He's playing as Heinrich Himmler from the beginning, and he's gonna, as you can see, he's a level 12. They've upgraded a lot of his raising dead kind of technologies, and this is what's really cool, is the spell browser. The spell browser basically just shows you what every animation does. It gives you your buffs, it gives you your target, your duration, all that kinds of thing. This will be very helpful for a lot of people in the beginning of the campaign. I may just even do a video going over all of the spells. As you can see here is your character detail that gives him all the amulets, the weapons, the talismans, the armor, any enchanted items, any arcane items, which I think is a really cool thing. That's a lot more in-depth than even what we've had before. Technology is also an interesting factor simply because there's so many different versions. This is probably the most complex of all of them. So instead of different like civic or military, and this may be, this is hopefully for the whole vampire counts, but you actually have books. You have dark magic books that you do research within, and these give various buffs. Buffs your low tiered units, can buff your high tier units. Spreads vampiric influence is in the Lamian Book of Blood, and then the Liber Necromancia or Necromonica kind of focuses on those higher tiered units. So that's going to be something you're not going to want to focus on, obviously, until you're able to recruit those high tier units. It's just interesting to see how complex and in-depth the Vampire Counts technology tree is. It's really more like a technology library, if you think about it. So he's going to get, they're going to take a look at the Hex Rates, because the Hex Rates are pretty completely epic. I'm very excited to, they are very expensive, but they are quite epic. They have physical resistance 75%. That means non-magical attacks only work 25% of the time. It can cause terror, which will cause lower tier units to rout, and their weapon strength combines armor attack, and their melee attack uses fire as well as magic. So these guys are, you know, they're late tier. They're technically cavalry, as you can see up there. I wonder if they'll fix that. They're scythe warriors. I mean, they're ethereal, ghost-like creatures that their only job is to harvest the dead. And then you have the Terrorgeist. He has a Terrorgeist in his army, does 25 melee attack, 280 armor-piercing weapon strength, and he can regenerate on the battlefield if he's out of combat, I would assume. That does make him a little more vulnerable to flame attacks. So if you're playing as them, or if you're playing against them, best way to take down a Terrorgeist, flame weapons, cannons, anything that uses fire. Sorry, kind of got something caught in my throat. So that was kind of the end of the battle, or end of the campaign thing. They will go into more detail, as he said in there. I don't know how much more in depth it will go, but yeah, just this small little snippet, which I kind of wish would have been longer, but it gave me a lot of hope, and it makes me very excited that that they released this, because I've been looking forward to what the gameplay is actually going to look like from the devs themselves. And yeah, I will be playing as the Vampire Counts. I don't know, I'm still up in the air on whether I will do a faction vote or not. There's 3 factions that I really want to play, so I may just do them. And if you guys don't really like that, then just let me know and in the comment section. But otherwise, I feel like I'm still a small enough channel where I won't get, if I got like 100 different votes or more, then I would be more willing. So maybe I'll put out a vote card on whether I should allow voting for Warhammer and only have it take effect if I get like 100 or 200 votes, one way or the other. So that will be kind of a wrap up. Again, the Vampire Counts, they look very fun to play as. It will be an interesting game mechanic. Their technology tree is very complex, but I think it'll be awesome. Raising the dead will always help. It'll help replenish your armies quickly, and then obviously those larger mounds where you get the high tier units will definitely come into play, where you can kind of siphon off of the dead throughout the entire campaign map. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Follow me on Twitch, Twitter, and Facebook. Be on the lookout for more Warhammer videos as they get released by Total War themselves. Thank you guys for watching. This is Havoc, and I am out of here. Peace!